right, guys, it looks like I lost Keegan. We were just about to start. So when she pops on, I will let her in. I hope you are doing well today. I'm going to give her a few minutes and then we'll jump on and we'll start. So if you're joining us, I am Terry Ann Russell, the host of Sacred Wellness Podcast. Today we're discussing reclaiming your voice and boundaries in midlife. How many of us need that? I know that I do. It's taken many years for me to sort of be in a space of reclaiming my voice. So I'm excited to share and present today with Keegan. I hope that she makes it on and she's not having any technical issues. If you pop on anytime during the live stream today, just say hi, leave a comment. Let us know if you like the show. We call this Third Thursdays with Keegan and Terry Ann, and Keegan and I share our wisdom. Keegan and I met, maybe 4 years ago now, when we were traveling on the road during the pandemic, my husband and we were homeschooling my daughter. So it just happened by chance that we met. And it's been a beautiful relationship since. I'll send her a message and see. Hope she's not having any issues getting back in. So I'm going to start. And when Keegan pops in, we'll let her in. So welcome back to the Sacred Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Terry Ann Russell. This is the space of raw truth, radiant healing, and soulful empowerment. Today, we're diving deep into something many of us feel called to reclaim: our voice and our boundaries, especially in this powerful phase of midlife. Joining me today will be Keegan Smith, visionary and artist, and the creator of Between Two Temples. I hope that she makes it on with us today. Keegan says, "The creator in me is the creator in you. Here is where we were all the same." I want to take a moment and sort of reframe this thinking that we have about midlife. If we can change our thinking from, shifting of getting older, our bodies, our faces, our minds are changing. Maybe we're slowing up a little bit. And we'd change it into the reframing thought of it's a portal. More recently, I've been given the guidance that menopause, midlife, it's all this opportunity for us to step into the powerful new you that's being rebirthed through this process at this time. So are you like me, a Gen Xer? You know exactly what I'm talking about. We've been told from a young age that we were to be seen and not heard. Many times I was told, you're too loud, you need to be quiet. You need to do what they tell you to do. You need to form a line and stand in that line and not deviate from that line. And as a young child, that just did not work well for me. I questioned a lot. And I often got in trouble for that questioning. If that sounds like you, let me know. I know I'm not the only one out there. So what if we look at midlife as a portal, a place where we shed everything that no longer fits us, the roles we play, the masks we wear, or the quiet suffering that we go through? How about doing for everyone else and not doing for ourselves? How about putting everyone else's needs before ours? And what if we finally say enough is enough? This is the time we begin to listen to ourselves, and we listen louder than to other people. So when Keegan joins me, I will ask her this question. But for now, I'm going to ask my listeners and viewers today. Have you ever felt like you disappeared, lost yourself in your relationships, in your career, in the roles you play as parent, daughter, wife, husband, spouse, professional? Did you feel like you were always giving, always adjusting, but never receiving in return? You always silenced that small voice that said, "What about me?" Maybe you were taught self-sacrificing practices. It wasn't about you. It was about doing for others before you. Until one day you've had enough. You know, for me, I grew up with that very self-sacrificing mindset. And so when I did do things for myself, I felt a lot of guilt around it, especially as a young mom of 3 young boys at the time. I put my needs aside to be wife, mother, caretaker. And in the interim, I found that I lost myself. I lost who I was. Did you ever feel selfish? There was many times I couldn't say no without feeling selfish. Somebody wanted me to do something or they needed something. I know my husband is notorious for this. I can't find this. Can you help me? It'll just take a minute. And it never usually takes a minute. Although I do find what he needs, it takes me away from what I'm doing. I always call him and my daughter my biggest sidetrackers because, I'm deeply ingrained and focused in what I'm doing. And here they come and they start pulling me away and distracting me from what I'm doing. So I've learned to shut that door back there, put a little note, not right now. You'll have to fend for yourselves and come back later when I'm done. Whatever you need is not that important. It's not a crisis. It'll still be there when I get back. I want you to think a moment for you. What was that time? Was that time when you were not able to? Uh-oh, shit, our Wi-Fi shut down. Trying to figure it out. Well, this is what happens when you go live. There is always things that happen. So hopefully she'll be able to join us. I want you to think about what was that time for you? What was that time that you said no more? I'm done. Did it come with screaming and yelling? Did you shut down completely and just cry? We all have a moment in our lives where we sit down and self-reflect or contemplate about the things that are working or not working for us. It's something that I do often because I think it's really important for me to self-evaluate what's working and what's not working and sort of figure it out and go from there. I want to talk a little bit about what happens when you lose your voice. When we lose our voice, we lose our identity. We shrink. We become over-accommodators. We say yes when we mean no, and we stay quiet when something deeply offends us or we're attacked just to keep the peace. How many of you do this? I was married for a long time to a narcissist who was the father of my daughter. And I cannot remember how often, just to keep the peace, I would do exactly what he asked me to do. And in that 18 years, I lost my voice. And it's funny because I think back through it, and it wasn't just my mental voice, it was my physical voice. I had many issues with my throat at that time, many different reoccurring infections where I'd lose my voice. My voice box would actually be so irritated I wouldn't be able to speak. And not knowing what I know now at that time, I did not put two and two together. And that's why it's something that's so important to me to share what I know and share what I do. It's about helping others come to that realization that oftentimes that emotional, that mental stuff that we have also will manifest as a physical ailment. My body started to whisper. It started to give me these clues. These symptoms were manifestations of what was going on internally with me, where I wasn't showing up for myself, where I wasn't sharing my voice authentically. I had headaches, anxiety, my throat. I had many issues with my throat over that time. What's really funny about the path of the spiritual journey is that you'll be asked to revisit those times again, not only to see how far you've come, but to understand clearer where you are still reclaiming or not claiming in your life. So recently I had to revisit losing my voice once again. We were in a situation, and I realized afterwards that this was the way that I could no longer be. This is not the person who I was. Even though I wanted tremendously to please this person and bring them peace in their life with the situations that were going on for them, that was not something that I could do. And I came home, and that's when I did the podcast, was, what if doing the right thing is the wrong thing for you? And on our plane ride home that day, I heard those words. What if doing the right thing is the wrong thing for you? What if it doesn't work for you? Yes, I wanted to make him have a peaceful situation in his life as he was going through this process, but it wasn't the right thing for me. And it stole my voice. It stole who I was authentically. I could not share. So I had to revisit that. And I realized at that time that person so long ago just doesn't exist anymore. Even though that piece of me who loves him tremendously and wanted to give him this gift of peace in his life at this immense time of pain, I couldn't do it for him because it was the wrong thing for me. Nowadays, I sort of describe it as the angry teenager phase. Have you heard that? We all know about the inner child and we do our inner child work, but now I have the angry teenager phase that I'm in. And I was not allowed to be that angry teenager at that time when I was young. So for me, experiencing this now for the first time gives me permission. It allows me to use my voice freely. It allows me to stand up for myself, to speak my truth. So as I was tested again this time, there are no other words to describe it other than I was pissed. I was really fucking pissed. And this was not going to continue on for me. As we got home, I sat around and I sulked about it. I threw things. I journaled. I did everything they told me I was supposed to do. And nothing was working. There was some sort of limiting belief that was keeping me stuck in that cycle. And what was it? What was that limiting belief for me? So for me, as a child, growing up in an Italian-American family in New York, my brother and I were the only blonde kids in our family. We have the Napolitan of my grandmother's side, which comes out in our blonde hair. But the rest of my family is Sicilian, so my brother and I were always different. And I learned at an early age that looks were very important. I was told how beautiful you are. Your hair, oh my gosh, is so beautiful. You're so blonde. You're so light. And so as a child, I sort of internalized what that was. And I began to get this mindset of the way that I looked was important. Not only was it important, it got me the attention that I was so drastically looking for as a child. And most times it got me the wrong attention. So, going through that expression of looking at those limiting beliefs and getting to the root cause, where they were really stemming from, were they my beliefs? Was it important for me to please others before I please myself? And no, it was not. So as I did a deep dive, and you'll see it in my podcast, because my podcasts will reflect on Spotify and Apple. They will reflect often what I am going through and what I am experiencing, and I will share. And often what I find is others are also experiencing similar things. One thing I love about Keegan and I is we have this dynamic connection. And let me just see if she's on, if she can get in. She's still trying. Keegan and I have this dynamic connection. And when we work together, you can feel it, you can see it, you can know it. Oh, there she is. Let me let her in. Hello.
Hello. That was crazy.
I've been sitting here talking about everything and us and our connection. And so I'm so glad that you were able to get back on. I was getting a
I
little
know
nervous.
the planets are doing crazy things, so I should have expected this to happen.
No worries, no worries. I also said this is live, and so this is what happens sometimes. There's no control over it. We just go with the flow, right?
Yes.
So I asked the question earlier, and I did some answering about it, but I want to ask you: have you ever felt like you disappeared, like you gave yourself up to your relationships or the roles that you play, your partner, as a daughter, as a professional in this world? We're always giving, always adjusting, and sometimes we're never receiving what we really need. So for you, when was that day that you realized you had enough?
Well, that's happened a few times in my life. I say that reincarnation is real because I've died and been reborn in this life many times already. So I definitely think the soul has done the same. But the one that I really remember being conscious for, like 100% conscious for, was year 33. I don't know what it is about it, but I was in the trenches of momming. I was in the trenches of mothering myself because so much of you changes when you become a mother. And it was about that. I had been a mom for 3 years. So it was about that mark where you're just like, you feel like a shell of a person. I was a stay at home mom to an army spouse. I was an army
Mm,
spouse. And I was living in Tennessee and about to move to Virginia. And I had a toddler, and I was extremely overweight, extremely unhappy, um, and just a shell of a person. And I had all of these like memories leading up to that point, 33 years of life. I lived in South Korea. I lived in different states. I had been married for years already, being away from my family long periods of time, having met so many people in and out of my life. I just felt like so much had been taken. And I was looking around and I really couldn't find like any joy. I couldn't. And it was a really scary moment. And I remember journaling
mhm.
and literally telling myself that you must be choosing this.
Wow.
And from that moment, my life changed. I got real personal with myself. I took responsibility for everything, including things that might not have been me, but I had to take responsibility because I still allowed things to happen, you know. Um, and I just decided that I wasn't going to be a statistic. I wasn't going to look like that. And this internal drive. I said I had all of these hats that I've worn and all of this wisdom. Like, who am I today? And I
Mm-hmm.
started to build from
And I've had
scratch.
enough.
Yeah, it was like a fire. It was like, I'm going to either, I don't want to say kill myself, but that's what I felt like. I'm like, I'm either going to kill myself or kill someone. And I need a check. I need to see what's real and what's not. And I really started to peel back the onion. And the first thing I did was strip myself of belongings, a lot of belongings, because I felt like that would be the answer. And everything had just like made me miserable. Like, I don't know if you've ever been there as a woman, but like I was folding clothes and I was just like, I hate this. I don't like this clothes. Why am I washing these clothes? I wear the same 6 freaking items. What is all this? All I do is pick things up and put them down. Like, what is happening? And then I got mad at laundry, and then that turned into like cleaning closets, you know. And then there was a liberation that started to happen because I had freedom. I had freedom
Yeah.
to do so, freedom to subtract and add, and it was something so small and minute as my clothes, but it started to trigger that choice in you. Like, every second of my day, every point, everything is a choice. And
Yes.
I do have control. And I have control now, and I don't have to wait.
I love that. It's so beautiful, and you share so poignantly. Say it for me. Poignantly. Oh, my mouth's not working today. See, I don't want to share my voice. I can remember. I mean, I'm laughing because I look back on it, and the first 6 years of my life were a blur. I had 3 babies in 3 years, and I don't even remember the first 6 years. I probably, was just barely alive because I so little sleep that I got during that time with 3 babies. It's funny because now I'm going through a similar phase, and I was just telling our listeners today that you'll see what's reflected in my podcast for what I'm going through at the moment. And what I'm going through in midlife is a whole nother I can't even tell you, like the world fucking exploded and here I am, and now like who the fuck am I? Because I'm like, everything and anything is pissing me off. I'm in this phase where I'm friggin' pissed. I'm like, look, help yourself. Find it yourself. I'm not taking you. I'm not picking you up. I'm not doing this. It's like, just
Responsibility.
I'm not the keeper of everything in this universe, you know? It's like I was saying, I shut my door and I'm like, I have a note, do not bother me. You know, even my son, my 31-year-old son is like, he was like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I am reclaiming who the fuck I am because I'm not here to always take care of you guys. Yeah, I love what I do. I love my children. I love my husband, but I can't keep continuing to do. And you guys always are looking for me to do that. So I was talking a little bit about physically how our body sort of goes through this also restructure when we think about it as an emotional restructure, right? Looking at that, but we're also looking now, my body's going through this physical restructure of understanding who are you at this point in your life and the things that you're going through, right? And so for me, some of those are really difficult. It's like you said, looking at it, telling yourself the God's to honest, raw fucking truth. This is who I am. And I'm
No
not
more
going to
sugar.
apologize for it anymore. I'm done apologizing for who I am, right? I've just gotten to that point. What about you?
It's true. I too feel that fire brewing in my belly, but I'm still like in the trenches of momming. But it's other people around me. I definitely feel like I could burn every bridge, and that's not good. But I also know where it's coming from. It's coming from this place, like you said, of like, hey, I can't. I am not the end all be all to everything. You have to take initiative. You have to take responsibility. You have to dream. You have to think, like you have to use your brain. I know that it sounds so simple and cliche, but you do. You have to use your brain. I cannot think for you. I cannot make all these decisions. And I want to decide things for myself, I'm
Right.
losing myself again, kind of thing. And when you have lost yourself a few times in life, I think that you hold on to it a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
And being women, I know you're talking about the body and stuff. Like, I think we hold it differently too, which we collect weight then, we're swelling. Our bodies are starting to go in reverse, our cycles are starting to shut down or change because our bodies need to conserve energy. It needs to, start healing different things so that it can take us another 20 years or 30 years in this lifetime. And I
Yeah.
think the fire can literally eat you alive and create sickness. Or if you breathe that fire, you start to sculpt the metals, you start to create again because it's different. It's like, hey, I've given you all these tools because I have them. I've given them to you. You need
Yep.
to apply them.
Yeah, I love that. And what's so important to me is when I look back at, with my ex for 18 years, I was just talking about him earlier. Um, I really thought at that time that I was setting clear boundaries for him, not realizing till much later these boundaries, I'd draw the line in the sand, he'd cross it. I'd draw the line, he'd cross it. And I'd be like, why does he keep doing this? Why can't he just stay behind the line that I've drawn? Not
Yeah,
understanding that it was me. I was allowing him to cross those fucking lines, to be like, oh, okay, here, she put a line. I'm going to go cross it and see what I can do. And I didn't
yeah.
understand at that time, right? You don't
Like
know.
calling your bluff, like calling your bluff. You know what I mean? Taking
Yeah, pissing me
advantage of
off.
you being, yeah, like taking advantage of you being understanding, or taking advantage of you being compassionate in the sense, or empathetic in the sense that you can understand where the behaviors come from, or you can understand why the actions are happening, and like negating the victim in yourself in it. You know what I mean? And all
Yeah,
that
and not
anger, I
until yeah, not until looking at it that it was actually me that was doing it. I was doing this to myself because I was allowing him to do this to me, right? It wasn't his fault. It was my fault because I hadn't had the knowledge or the wherewithal to fully understand at that time what was actually occurring. That period of actual personal growth for me brought on such change in my life. I can't even tell you like how I started to reclaim my voice, assert these boundaries, and people thought I was a fucking bitch. And I'm like, you know what?
yeah,
I'm doing exactly what I need to do for me because you're not listening. You think I'm a bitch, but I could
yep,
say it nicely 5 times and you're not going to listen. The sixth time, I'm going to yell and scream like a fucking bitch. And now you're going to listen all of a sudden, right? But then it's my
exactly.
fault.
Or you're selfish. I love that one.
Selfish
That's
is a
the first
big
thing.
one.
That is the first thing that gets thrown out there, especially if you've been manipulated with guilt. I feel like that is the first thing that they go after. Like, you are being selfish. And it's like, no, I had to claim all of the parts of me, even the ugliest parts, even the parts that I don't want to admit that happened because like you said, I let it happen. So I know what transformation that gave me. I know what stepping stones that gave me, and what came into my life and what left my life. And only you can give that to yourself. You have to do it. No
Yeah.
book can do it. Nothing. They can give you guidelines, but you have to be raw. Like, you have to say, like, you're lazy. That's why you don't get off the couch and go work out. You don't really care about your heart. Like, you have to get raw with yourself.
Yeah.
If your mom and dad have diabetes and you're overweight, like, I had to do this to myself, like, Keegan, you know where this train wreck leads. You know where it leads. Why are you choosing that? What about you says you're not worth it? What makes you feel like your heart shouldn't beat in this planet? What makes you think that your body should be on medications? What makes you think that that path is the only path for you? You can claim
Yeah.
health today. You can claim structure today. Why are
Yeah,
you
and
choosing it?
yeah, and so that
And the
limiting belief, right? Because you probably heard like me, well, this is hereditary, it's in your family, you're gonna get it. So you think
yeah,
automatically, right? Well, it's there, so why do I really need to do anything about it? That's a
yeah.
real important root cause of one of those limiting beliefs you're talking about.
And it's that subconscious, because when you hear it so long, you start to self sabotage and you start to create situations that put you on that path because you've already determined that there's nothing else for you.
Yes. Yeah. My gosh, this is such a great show today. I want to dive into looking at how do you know your boundaries actually need work? Because this was something for me, like I said, with X, I thought that I was setting the boundaries, and I was, but he would cross them. So how do you know your boundaries need work? Well, number one, I find for me is after dealing with certain people, you feel drained. You know, we
Yeah.
had an incident recently where we were around family, and both my husband and I were so physically and mentally drained. We were exhausted. And it was like, why are we doing this to ourselves? What is it? Because we have this responsibility that we think we have? Or is it
This
that we're, yes. And that's where that podcast came from. The what if doing the right thing is the wrong thing for you? I actually heard that on the plane coming home.
Well, that strikes a chord. That strikes a chord very personally, because I feel that. And I also feel if I am around certain people that constantly trigger me and I have to constantly bite my tongue, I know that I do not need to be around those areas anymore. And I don't need to be around those people anymore, because if I'm feeling like I have to bite my tongue, then I already know that you're not receiving what I'm putting down. You're not receiving the love that I give you. And that's not a space I want to be in anymore. And it's not a negative thing towards those people. It's a positive thing in my experience for myself to see that. And it's a deeper love for myself to say, hey, Keeg, like, your anxiety wasn't you. It's the room you're in. Your sadness wasn't you, babe. It's the room you're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your insecurity is the room you're in. You make people feel very insecure.
And often as a child, right? That's I discussed that earlier on before you were here. I was talking about being the only blonde people in a Sicilian Italian family, and my brother and I were always treated very differently. I always felt that looks were so important, and I got a lot of attention as a child. So, but it was often negative attention because I was acting out. I was looking for that, not realizing, right, that they weren't allowing me to be who I truly was. This outside appearance is not who I truly am. But for so long,
No.
I internalized that as a child, right? And we do that. We look at that and we say, all right, so much later in life now, as we're in midlife, as I call it, because I just turned 56 and I'm like, I'm not putting up with nobody's shit no more. It's like, I've worked too long and too hard on myself to be with people that don't even give a shit about how they're going to act.
Or don't know you, because if they did, they would understand and appreciate your boundaries.
Yes. Boundaries, I think,
So,
are one of the most important things that people need to work on. Another one I found, I don't know if you've done this before, but I know I have, saying yes when you want to say no.
all the time. You know what else too? I've noticed that I will say no problem when it actually is something I don't want to do. Because I'm
Wow.
telling myself, Keegan, it's not a problem. You can just do this for them.
Wow.
And that's what I've noticed. If I feel like I immediately want to say, it's okay, that's no problem, I can do it, then I know I'm already going against myself.
Yes.
And that took a lot of training. That took a lot of perspective, because I had to see that every moment that I said those things, I did not want to do what was being asked of me, or I didn't want to help a person in a certain situation or something. And it always ended up negative, and it always ended up on my back in those situations. Something always happened. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it. It can be the most minute thing, but it just won't go easy, and it won't feel good when you're done. It
Right,
will
because I
feel,
guess it's like you're doing something for somebody, they ask you to do something, you do it willingly because you love them or you're a giving person, whatever it is, right? It's not a problem. But then you do it and
yeah.
then you're even ridiculed or attacked or whatever it is. It wasn't good enough for that person. It's like,
Or sometimes
look,
it's not even.
I know.
Go ahead,
So
continue. It's
yeah, and the other thing I found is, um, this was one for me too, was apologizing. I'm sorry that I have to do this for me. Like it was like I needed their permission for them to say, okay, it's okay that you do that because you need that. Like I needed somebody to give me the actual permission rather than giving permission to myself. That was a huge one.
yeah, I think that that's a big one for people pleasers in general, I think, because you always feel like you're the problem.
Yes.
Or you try to assume the problem so that you can keep the peace or no tension or no friction or whatever. And that's also why I think that we get to a point in our life where we're like, everyone get away. I don't want to help you. Everyone go. I just want to be alone in a mountain somewhere. And I think because you have huge responsibility of so many things around you too to keep the peace. Like, you know, I change sometimes, how I talk and things like that around certain people, because and then I'm drained after because I know that they won't receive it. But it's like, why do I always have to be conscious of this interaction or this relationship, but the other person doesn't have to be conscious of how much work it takes me to have this mediocre relationship with no connection because we have a title or because we have blood or some kind of societal bond that says I have to check the block.
Right.
There's no
Yeah, we don't
connection.
have that. We have I was explaining to everybody listening that we met 4 years ago and it was instantaneous. Like I don't like there's I'll be the first one to tell you I love what I do. I love working with people, but there's not a lot of people that I like. And so when I meet somebody when I meet somebody that I can be authentic with, like you, and create this connection, this authentic connection with vulnerability and sharing. It's such a
And
beautiful connection.
no
Yeah,
fear.
no fear.
That was the most incredible thing. I think
Yeah,
when
you
you're a really
really
strong personality and you have done the work, I feel like you give this push on people. And some people are very turned off by that and intimidated by that or fear that, and I feel like something switches in them that guards them, you know what I mean? And then there's some people that you meet like you that it's like, oh my god, I've been waiting forever, and you can just mold into it because there's no fear. It's like, wow, let's go, like let's see how deep this can go, and it's craving that deep connection instead of fearing it.
yeah.
And I think that happens when you heal because you've let yourself go so deep that you're secure, like what you've been through and the lessons it taught you and what's valuable to yourself, and you're waiting for people to mirror that back to you. And
Yeah.
that's what you provide, this really deep, beautiful mirror that is infinite, which is a resemblance of my soul and my creativity, it's infinite.
Yes, absolutely. That's so beautiful. So does this sound familiar to anybody? What we've been talking about here so far? Does this sound familiar to you? Um, we've unwrapped a lot in this short time, and we're only 39 minutes in. Keegan's been here for about 25 minutes, I think. And we've only unwrapped a little bit of what reclaiming your voice and setting
Yeah.
boundaries in midlife is. So for me, you know, there was a long time that I did say no, but I would apologize, right? And I had to learn that actually no is a complete sentence. I don't need to finish that with no, I can't because I have to do this. No, I can't because I have to do that. No is enough. Um, I love that no is enough. Now I'm like, okay. And when somebody says to me, no, Terry Ann, I can't. That's enough for
Okay.
me because I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, they can't do it. I don't harbor any resentment and are like, oh, they can't do it. Okay. But when you say no and now you start reclaiming that, right? Because I'll tell you, you're going to lose people, you're going to get people pissed
Mhm.
off, you're going to start becoming this person that can stand in their own power as you do this work, right? And when we reclaim who we are, you're going to piss a lot of people off.
Yep. A lot of people. They're going to be very annoyed. It's true.
And that's
I
because
I
why? Why do you think that is? I feel like it's because now you are mirroring to them. This is what it is like for somebody to be claiming their power. This is what it's like for you if you do the work that you need to do for you. And that work may be different from my work, right? Not all of us have had the same experiences, so we don't have the same work. But when I'm mirroring that to you, some people are, like you said, immediately turned off to that, and they sort of get a little anxious or angry around you. That to me is a true indicator that they haven't done it.
Yes, exactly. I say that I had to teach myself to leave people on red. How you would do it on social media, it's okay to leave people on red. It's okay to leave them exactly where you met them and that be enough.
Yeah.
Some people are seasons, some people are reasons, and some people are part of a cycle that every time you pick up that cycle, they're going to be there to jump right on board. And so, in claiming that power back in myself, I really had to be okay, like you said, say no. You do not have to explain yourself to anyone ever. You don't have to. That's a courtesy that you provide to people intimately. That's not allotted for every single person. And I
Right.
feel like that's why we've become so sensitive as a culture, because we just do this. We have absolutely no boundaries and we call it love. And it's self-sacrifice. It's this mortar complex. And then you're a victim in it. And then when
Yeah.
you feel empty because you've given yourself, then you're a victim. When you need to learn to leave it on red.
Yep. Stand.
That is infuriating to people because they want an answer.
Yes.
You don't need an answer. There's a lot of things in the world that don't have answers. People are mysterious too. If you want to get to know them, then you have to dig a little. That shouldn't just be afforded. It's
Yeah.
how we get.
Yeah.
So I say be confident on red.
I love that. It leaves so many questions. Like, I want to know if you're a woman out there and you're in this phase of midlife, leave us a comment or something, send us an email, because if you're reclaiming your voice as a woman now in this time period that we're in, it means owning not only your strength, your truth, who you are, what you really are, right? Because we are so different and nobody wants to really dig down deep, like you said, and look at those darker aspects of ourselves. But we all have them. We all know. I always said this, even younger, I would say, I truly believe that everybody knows what their flaws, I used to call them flaws, are, right? If somebody is a user, you're a user. I don't need to tell you you're a user. Deep down, if you look at yourself, that you're a user, right? And so
And
when you
you're
come
only
into
offended because
alignment,
I see you.
yeah, and when you come into alignment with that, right, this natural progression starts to happen. We're looking at that. And so as we move forward into these, setting boundaries and reclaiming power, um, it's really gotten me thinking and sending me down the rabbit hole again, because I'm like, well, I've done this so many times before, but I've not done this now in this time period where I am in this midlife, as my physical body, my mental body, emotional, my spiritual is also going through this huge shift. What do you
Mhm.
think about that? Like, because we are all just learning every day, right?
We are, and the cliche that's going around saying that the souls that are awakening. I know it's cliche, but the souls that are awakening right now in the world, actually have the time and space and understanding and capability to actually feel. And when we feel through things, we will go through things instead of bypassing things. And I think I think that is something that really needs to be honored and looked at, and it's being kind of like brushed under the rug, in the sense that we are feeling the labor pains from our ancestors. We are feeling like that song, like "You Make Me Do Too Much Labor," that we talked about all day, every day. Therapist, mother, maid, nurse, and a virgin, all of this stuff you have to be, right?
Oh my God. I laugh. I could scream that song all day. My daughter turned me on to that
It
song.
makes me so angry. And then there's another song called Savage Daughter. And it's
Yeah.
like my mother's savage daughter. Yeah. And I feel like these things that are being said and these things that are being done, it's like the restitution for women oppression and the restitution for the feminine suppression, basically. And we are in the power right now, if especially if you live in America, to be a free woman. And we are defining what that looks like. And we have to be very careful not to make it look too masculine, because we are losing so much beauty of the divine feminine to die and rebirth herself and recreate herself and change how she thinks and change her environment and do all of these things. And we have the space and the peace and the time to actually do this with consciousness and say, hey, there are cycles that we will not be, there are cycles that will be ending. And there are cycles that I'm not afraid to create, because I have knowledge and I have understanding and I have a deep seated truth. And we're not afraid to show that. And I think that that is what's boiling up and coming to our throats and making all of us want to breathe fire. And you don't know what it looks like because you are in the position to create it.
And for you
And it's
and for
powerful.
your ancestors, right? Because our mothers were not allowed to do that. Our grandmothers were not allowed to
And
do that.
there
I'm
are
getting
women
chills.
still in this world today. There are women in this world today that are still not allowed to do that.
Yes. I feel very fortunate. I feel very fortunate that we, as women right now in America, are open to learning and learning as we reclaim our voice, right? We're reclaiming it. But also, it does not have to be that loud, that no that I was talking about, that simple little no. That can be a very
Can be a,
divine feminine aspect of yourself, just to say no. Softly, firmly, no.
yep, yes. It doesn't have to
So,
look masculine at all. It doesn't have to be a fight. It can be very quiet.
yes. I feel like midlife is like a rite of passage, right? We've been told for so long, especially I think in our culture, that midlife for women is like downhill. All it is downhill from there. And so you get to a point where you're getting there and it's like, holy shit, I'm getting to this space. I'm old. I feel old. I look old. I'm acting old. But I feel like, yeah, I feel like it's like this initiation into this like deeper power of who we truly are on a soul level, where we're starting to understand and reclaim our voice. And the voice is like this place for us to return to who we truly are on a soul level, right?
Yeah. That's been interesting too. And you know what? In this stage of my life, I feel like it's a little overwhelming, because I feel like I know who I am, but the more I pull back things, I see a lot of the programming of other people that I picked up along the way in early ages. And I don't know if it's because I have done so much work and continue to critique myself and analyze myself that I do that. But I feel like a lot of the things that I felt so strongly about too, and like hills I was willing to die on, they're not mine. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a really daunting place to be. And sometimes I'm very overwhelmed by that, because like we've talked about before, there's little eyes watching. And there's the little girl in me that is always cheering me on. But then there is a wise older version of me that wants to be respected and understood and wants to be peace and wants to that like I have a vision for her, or maybe she already exists and that's where I'm on my way to. But it's really overwhelming when you do take responsibility for every decision, because then you also have the daunting task of, am I making the right decisions?
Yeah.
And so it's an awkward place to be in right now.
I totally agree. There's nothing easy about any of this process that we go through as a human being. Um, as you said, I've died and been reborn many times just in this life alone. And right now, this sacred return for me is, it's not only like I look at myself, and I hope I don't cry because everything makes me cry lately. I have been, I'm hysterical over everything. I'm like, I said to my husband, I don't know who I am. Like a dog commercial makes me cry. And so I want to try to say this
And
without crying,
how
but
many times did you want to cry because you felt your heart and you did it? And now you give yourself the permission to feel it. So if you do, then cry, because
I
little
know.
Terry needed to cry too. 19-year-old Terry needed to cry. 26-year-old Terry needed to cry.
They did. And but it's such a different experience for me because as you were saying, I'm trying to understand who I am. And is that who I wasn't allowed to be? And now I'm in a space of expressing that's who I am. Is it something that is, just a piece of my soul that has for so long been in that masculine that is entering that feminine? And she's like, look, my soul is tired. I've done this for so long, eons. My soul is just fucking exhausted. So, figuring that out for me, I think has been this huge coming back into truth telling to myself as well.
And being kind to yourself,
Yes.
especially if you have a critical brain. Many of us women have a critical brain because I think we're just picked apart from day one and, pinned against one another and competitiveness. But I think of what you're saying and it resonates because I too feel like I have this warrior in me. And I have this like mental metaphor that I give myself. And I think of a warrior literally coming home to his wife, or his soulmate or his love after being in battle. Like I think of like Roman times, let's just say, and he's been out to battle for months and months and he's come home and he's bloody and he's bruised. And it's like, how would you greet that man? How this warrior you love that is exhausted, he's been fighting and he falls through the door, like how would you nurse him back to health? Would
Yeah.
you want to demand him speak all of these truths to you, all of this knowledge that he's claimed in war? Or would you take time to nurture the body, and would you take time to relearn
Mhm.
him and who he is in that healing? And then in that healing we find all the secrets, we get told all the truths. And
Yeah.
I try to center myself in that metaphor, especially when I want to be a warrior, like, no, we're resting now, oh, oh, we're resting. And it's like kind of playing this dialogue within yourself and constantly nurturing that warrior, because there is truth.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's hard for a lot of us. I think that for so long we have not only the internal dialogue of the conditioning that we grew up with, right? Because you never rested. You were not allowed to rest. If you rested, you were lazy and you were not going to get anything done and you weren't going to get anywhere in the world if you rested. How many have heard that?
Yeah, I am still trying to break the habit that when I hear my husband's steps coming up the front door, I jump off the couch. Like I'm going to get yelled at or something for not doing something because I'm sitting there resting, which is ridiculous. But it's something in me. And I know it comes from being told, like, why are you sitting and resting? There's something that can be done. What are you doing? I still am fighting that. I'm like, what is this? Stop. Like I'm doing something wrong. Ah,
And I
get
think
up,
that's
start
part of it
the
from midlife, right? Because midlife traditionally is that slowing down, and you are taking more time to nurture yourself, to get in touch with you, to be guided in this new space that you're coming into. And it's an unknown area. For me, it's an unknown. I don't like the unknown. I'll tell you, I'll be the first person to tell you that I am type A. As much as I am intuitive, I am very type A and analytical. I like my ducks very nicely placed in a row. And if they're not placed in that row, I'm sort of like, what the hell am I doing? So, in that space of my ducks are not in a row now, I'm trying to navigate what this really truly is for me. And I think that's why I try to express it to others, because I know I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one going crazy out here mid friggin' life that's trying to figure this shit out. I mean, how many of us are going through this?
It has to be everyone. It has to be because I'm seeing so much change and it's like so rapid. And you're seeing like I think I've said it before, but you're seeing people either get really, really bitter because they're not taking responsibility, or they're getting really, really happy because they're just like, you know what? F it all. The duck wants to go this way and the other duck wants to go that way and that way. Whatever. I'm going to go straight. Whoever is meant to follow is going to follow because nature tells us that. You know, the ducks have how many? 10, 12 in a litter.
Yes.
And then by the end, they'll make it. I mean,
And there's always
nature.
one. There's always one off on his own. That would probably be me. But I'm thinking about it and I'm like, looking at the duck scenario, it's like, I think for me, you know, not knowing is probably just as difficult as knowing, because as I'm entering the feminine, right, I'm letting go of that masculine where they had to be lined up. And
Yep.
now everybody in my family is looking at me because I'm not lining them all up, and every duck is like every which way. And fend for yourself, right? You can cook yourself. I'm not shopping. I'm not doing. I told them all this week, I'm on fucking strike. I'm not doing shit. Like, you want dinner? Make it. I'm not
Yeah.
buying it. I'm not
What's
doing
wrong
it.
with you? What's wrong with you?
It's definitely me because I'm going into that feminine, right? Which is not only reclaiming my voice and speaking it, but also now letting people take their own responsibilities. I don't have to be responsible for everything. And it starts at home, of course, with your family, and then it trickles out to your extended family, your peers, your work, like that, So when you think about your
It,
ducks being in a row, that's the life that I lived.
yeah. And when you're saying that, I was thinking like, you've provided the space for them. You provided the tools. You provided all the things. Like, you have to then take what your mother has provided to you, the space for you to grow and do, and I feel like we forget that. Like, our job is not to do every little thing. Our job is to provide the space, the time, and the energy to create yourself. And you have to think about pregnancy and how, like, we know nothing about pregnancy, what's going on in our body. We can't see it. We can feel it growing. We can feel our body changing. You know that this baby is creating, but we don't know what their faces are going to look like till they pop out. We don't know who they're going to be. We don't know any of these things. And we're comfortable with that unknown, right? But then we can't apply that to our everyday life. We have to know everything
Yes.
because the mother role has been taken way too far. It's
I
not
think,
a
what do they
slave
call it?
role.
Um, I heard a term the other day. Lawnmower parents. It used to be helicopter parents. Now it's a lawnmower parent, because you're going to run ahead and you're going to put that lawn nicely manicured for them as they go, so they don't ever have to struggle through anything or any weeds as they go through that lawn. And I'm like, woo boy, like every generation has their own thing, and I can see that, but it's like I can definitely see that now with the generation coming up.
Yeah, and it's not a good position to be in, and the parents are going to get burned out. There's no one that can sustain that long term. You can't give yourself forever because there's going to come a time that the soul is just going to say, like, yeah, this doesn't work and I'm out of here. And then depression sets in.
Yeah.
And that's like the truth, really.
Yeah,
And I
because
think
When you
stepping
give
into.
so much to yourself, right? You give and you give and you give and you give. And then when you don't give, you feel guilty or you feel selfish. So whatever it is, I
Yeah,
don't feel like you ever really, if you're raised like we were raised, I don't feel like you ever really win, if you will.
no, no. And you don't. Somebody is always losing if you're raised that way, like, and if you don't ever feel like you win, then you're not going to try to win. You're just going to be like, this is it. This is what it is.
Or
But I like
everybody
to think,
wins. You have that
yeah,
mindset too. Everybody gets a trophy because everybody wins.
and then nobody applies effort. But I went through marriage counseling, and we talked a lot about the 5 love languages early in our
Mm-hmm.
marriage. And I don't know if our viewers are familiar with the 5 love languages, but it's the way in which we give and receive love. There's words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, touch, and gifts. Those are
Mm-hmm.
your 5 basics. But they broke it down really smart when they were talking about, like, in a marriage, and I think this can be applied to any relationship, even the one within yourself. They said, look at it like a bank account. And if you start with like $5,000 here, and this person needs 100, and this person needs 1,000, and this, and it keeps going without any money coming in, it just stops at some point. Then there is nothing. There's nothing to give. And our minds and bodies are the same exact way. If we don't treat it like a bank account, like, it sounds so dumb, but if we don't treat it kind of like a business, this relationship, then one person is going to lose. And I feel like that's what's been happening, like, even in our society. There's so many empty people that are beautiful people that don't even want to love again or have friendship or connection because they've been so used and abused by people that just take money without putting it back in. And
Yeah.
we can see that at a literal level too, with like credit and everything, but that's a whole nother topic.
That's a whole
But
nother show.
yeah, that's a whole nother topic. But I started after that really looking at relationships kind of like that, and I started getting real with myself, like, hey, am I facilitating the time and space for the magic to happen constantly, and that time and space is never being provided to me for you to make the magic? Then this is a one-sided relationship. I'm having a relationship with myself, basically.
And then when you bring it up, right, then it's maybe deposited a little bit,
A little bit.
but then
It's
not
like
again.
paying the minimum payment. It's like paying the minimum payment on your credit card debt. Keep
I
the
love that.
telemarketers off your back, but it doesn't solve the problem.
That's a good topic for a show. How is your relationship like a bank account?
Yeah. If you like monetized your relationships, how rich would you be? That would be a really deep question to ask.
Or how poor would you be?
How poor would you be? Because you may have a lot of acquaintances and a lot of things around you, but you are feeling empty. So to me, you're not a happy person. You're not a rich person.
Yeah. There's so much that goes into our journey as a human being, and we don't have all the answers. Keegan and I love to share on our third Thursdays and come in with our knowledge and our experiences and be real, because I think for so long we've been in a society that has been fake. And it's
Yes.
time for us as women to step up, to reclaim, right? This is not something that we just go into as a one time maybe decision, but we're looking at it for the long term, right? It's a devotion to you. It's getting into um, topics and digging deeply into things about yourself that you may or may not be going through. Because some of it can be subconscious, right? Some of it still does lie beneath the surface, but it's there, whether you know it or not. It could be subconscious.
Yeah, and I think that because it's subconscious, I think sometimes we're so afraid to take a step or commit because we're afraid to be seen, or we're afraid to be judged, or we're afraid, what people will think. And the the hardest part is not giving a shit, basically, because who I am today, I know I'm not going to be the same person next year. So for me to sit here and tell you that I have all the answers and the end all be alls to it, I might have a completely different opinion in a year from now, but I'm confident in who I am as a person. And so I just know that that person a year from now is going to be better because she's made better choices. And that's all you can afford yourself.
Yes. Wiser, older,
Yeah. And
more
like
knowledgeable.
even doing these podcasts, and I know people are looking and I know people are listening and watching, and I know people are still afraid to say, and you shouldn't be, because you shouldn't be afraid to change either. That is the whole point. We're evolving, who I am yesterday, something crazy may happen today that shifts my whole perspective.
That
And I
changes,
have,
yeah.
yeah,
You know, and I think midlife, right? As we look more at midlife, we're looking at not only the things that are, sub level, but in those lower subconscious realms. And I feel like a lot of us, my generation for sure, wasn't brought up with that internal love to have for yourself. And
yeah,
so, as people my age are reclaiming this, they're learning what that love for themselves actually means and putting that forward now into this is part of what it is about, right? Because as we reclaim the love for ourselves, that can only grow outwards. Yeah, sometimes it does come out as this angry teenager, I say, but a lot of times what comes out when people I meet is the love that I have for
yeah,
people, the genuine love that I have for people, not given with any conditions. Um, circumstances, you have to be this way to be loved, but just given unconditionally. And I think for me, God, don't cry, my daughter is the true master teacher that gave me the permission to receive unconditional love.
yeah.
She really did. Having boys, I always say boys are raised so differently. And if you tell me you have boys and girls and you raise them the same, I'm going to call bullshit on it because
Caroline,
I have both, and not until I had a daughter. So I had her last. I had 3 boys, and then I had her 20 years later. I had no understanding about myself until I had this little girl who
yeah,
taught me how to love a little girl in myself. And that is so powerful because every moment of every day of the rest of my life, I watch her and I admire who she is and how she's grown. Um, and she
so
requires,
spicy.
and you know what? And she requires that of me. When I tell
Uh-huh.
her, like, you don't, go to tables that nobody asked you to, you make your own fucking table.
You want
She
a
requires that of
pedestal.
me.
Mommy, you taught me that.
So I didn't think I was gonna cry. I should have known I was gonna cry.
I
But
couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. They are,
you have a daughter.
yeah, and she definitely put the warrior to sleep because they do. They soften you, and they soften you, like you said, to that little girl inside of you that you've been critiquing for years because you grew up and everyone around you critiqued you, and you start to go out in the world and want, like you said, to connect to those mirrors and their innocence and like who they are. And like when you see them see something for the first time, or you see them like click, or you see them stick up for themselves and everything, it's like it's so rewarding, and it softens you to yourself. Like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to try. It's okay to say no. Like, you want them to be strong. And just like you said before, one word is enough. And how she talks, like, and I'm sure Sophia does the same thing. They tell you, like, I don't like how that person talked to you. Why are you letting them talk to you like that?
Yep.
And you're,
Don't talk to my mom like that. That's what she'll say to people. Don't talk to my mom like that.
yeah. Or like, mine doesn't tell people. She tells me. She says, why are you letting them talk to you? You would never, like, what are you doing? and it wears you down. And then the warrior turns from, fighting yourself to looking at what really is a threat, in the world, and not fighting every battle, just really knowing what is a threat and what's important, and giving that unconditional love, because
Yeah, that
nothing is guaranteed, but I can guarantee you that this heart and this home will always be for my baby girl. Like, I can't tell you what the world is going to do, but I want you to always know that this is the safest place. You can always come home.
yeah.
And I think that is the most important thing for a little girl. You don't have to take shit from anything. You can always come home. And I think when they know that, I think they're just a different kind of warrior out there.
Yeah, I see both of them, yours and mine, with the warrior, but with the softness of the warrior. Because mine, she's a warrior, but she also has this softness that she does not show a lot of people, but she has it. And I've seen her use it. And she uses it especially well with older people. She loves the older generation and loves being with old ladies and just, taking it all in. So it's just been
And
a beautiful journey.
I think you've
Yeah.
given, yeah, such a strong intuition too, that she knows her boundaries and she knows who to be safe with. And the things that you just said, like the people that she is kind and soft with and stuff, are the deserving ones. She has good intuition. She knows who she can be open and
Knows.
to and who she shouldn't. And you're not telling her otherwise. You know, if you don't feel that person's vibe, then don't mess with it. You want to be open over here? I trust you to be open over here.
Yes. And that's something that we didn't have, right? We didn't have that ability to be able to express that or understand it, or that understand everybody wasn't deserving of who we truly were on a soul level. Our boundaries are so divine. I just want to finish up here with talking about how we really are hoping that what Keegan and I do when we come together really stirs something within your soul. Because it stirs something within us in every
Mhm.
moment that we get to share, and we share authentically, and with each other. I hope that people understand the genuineness between us, and the ability that you can be with another woman, and it doesn't have to be a competition, and it doesn't have to be hard. It could be the easiest, most beautiful, genuine thing in the world.
And supportive. You can support. If you're I know who you are in your soul. So I just appreciate that. And I don't know what other word to use but appreciate, because it's inspiring. When you can fill your life or your circle with people that inspire you and don't compete with you, it really changes your life. You dream differently and you imagine differently. And how we talked about like warriors in the world and having to know a threat, it also teaches you, especially if you come from trust issues, that like not everybody is a threat either. So I want that to be relayed as well. Like, not everybody telling you the truth is a threat. Some people that tell you the truth is because that's what they're feeling too. They want that deep connection. They want you to let the wall down and say, dude, this sucks. This is hard. How do we get through this?
Yeah.
I don't care that you have to keep all of these check tabs. I don't care what you're looking like right now. How is your heart holding up? How are you managing this? How are you navigating this? And that in itself is so powerful. And I think that's what you really want to give people too. Like, you are not alone in this ever.
No.
It does suck. You do not have to be perfect in it. And most days you're not going to know what the fuck. But when you have good support around you and supportive women that aren't afraid to go through the suck and say this sucks, then you start to imagine again, and you can imagine your life, and you can create and manifest and make choices to bring you more closer to who you truly are, because you're not in defense.
Yeah.
You're in open.
I love that. You're so beautiful. I love spending time with you and sharing our voices here today. Until next time, I ask that you just stay grounded, stay glowing, and be in a place of really giving yourself grace, because this journey is not for the weak. So thank you for joining us on Sacred Wellness on Third Thursdays with me and Keegan, and we look forward to seeing you again. Remember, like, comment, and share. It helps us to grow and expand so we can get our voices out there and help more of you that are like us and create a community of women. And that's what we're really striving to do here today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.